Welcome to the Ascension Path with Twin Essence. I'm Lacey.
And I'm Marley, and we're your Starseed Lightworker and Psychic Medium hosts.
We're identical twins with spiritual abilities and Starseed missions on Earth. On the Ascension Path, we discuss what it's like to be identical twins serving in a spiritual capacity and provide insights into our work as Starseeds. We create a sacred space to receive channeled messages, intuitive teachings, and expansive conversations that elevate your frequency and support your evolution. Join us to learn about navigating the path to Ascension and becoming the most authentic, aligned version of you. Take what resonates and leave the rest. We are going to be discussing the pink and blue beings, which happen to be our Starseed origins. So we are going to dive into how we discovered these beings and our lineages and how we interact with them. So just to recap a little bit, with our Starseed awakenings, Marley was actually the first one to have an experience.
Yeah, so I think they first came to me mostly through the astral realm and dreams. It was a cat-like being that I first experienced, and shortly after that, Lacey as well, I believe, had an experience with a cat-like being.
Yes, I was awoken in the middle of the night and saw this being in my mirror, very iridescent and blue-like, but there were hieroglyphics glowing behind them, so very Starseed-like, and it had an Egyptian headdress on as well.
And mine was more of a lucid dream, so I was like physically feeling the cat like on the bed next to me, laying down, but then I was also seeing it in the dream state as a humanoid cat-like being. And it was a profound experience, I think, for us both. And that was where we started to really discover our starseed origins. And messages and other experiences really continued after those initial interactions.
Yes, it was very positive, nothing scary about it, but intriguing, and we really wanted to learn more. So, thus, our Starseed journeys started to unfold, and we really had no idea at this point how it would probably change the course of our lives and our spiritual work with Twin Essence. So, before we get into these complete stories of how we uncovered and interacted with these beings, I just wanted to mention that we grew up with favorite colors, and mine was always pink, Marley's was always blue, and that's kind of how we always dressed and what we were drawn to growing up. Little did we know it would become indicative of our starseed origins later in life.
As usual, the soul always knows and always remembers, and the human part of us is just catching up along the way.
Yes. So, after I had my initial experience with a Lyran in my mirror and what that looked like with hieroglyphics, I started to slowly have other experiences with these beings. It was not a fast experience at all. I felt like after my first experience, I didn't really know what it meant and what it would do for me. I just kind of thought like maybe it's just an interdimensional being, which it ended up being, but I didn't know why it was coming to me. I wasn't sure like how to interact with them, what it would mean, or if it would impact my spiritual work and what I was doing. But I started to have more interactions, and these beings would come to me, and they always looked cat-like or feline-like. They usually were almost like lions. I always say they had a lion type of head and then a humanoid body. Sometimes they would be wearing a headdress of some sort, typically Egyptian, and other times they would be wearing nothing at all and just like in their skin suit, for lack of a better word.
The other thing about Lyrans, I think that's so interesting, and the experiences Lacey and I both had with Lyrans early on in this discovery, is that as we did start doing research and like really navigating what is this that I'm seeing, what is this that I'm experiencing, there's a lot of depictions online, like different art pieces people will make and drawings that were super accurate to what Lacey and I were seeing. So I remember that being something that we were like, whoa, it was just crazy to us that there were depictions of these beings, and it makes you feel like you're not crazy and you truly are picking up on something and you're not just making something up.
Totally. And I think that was really helpful because how do you make up this half humanoid lion head being? But then you see art depictions of it and you're like, whoa, somebody else saw this too, so I'm not literally making this up. That being said, though, it's still hard to find some information with starseeds on the internet because of the variety and the diversity in what's out there.
Yes.
But the point is, I started having more subtle interactions with them. I didn't really know what they were here for and what was going on. But I knew we had already at that point started to uncover, oh, these are starseeds, these are Lyrans. This is a thing that we can connect with. And we had already gone through our birth charts and found the markers, so it made sense that we knew we were starseeds. But we hadn't yet uncovered what that actually meant for us and how it would change our work. Well, much later on in our journey, I actually had a dream, and dreams are a big starseed thing, and that's a whole nother topic where we'll get into our purposes and our starseed missions and how dreams play a role in that. But I had this dream about loons, and I remember distinctly seeing loons in the water and on the water. Loons actually represent the dream world and emotions. But I ended up meeting my Lyran Starseed guide, whose name was Amika, and she was very light pink. She was feline-like. She had this soft energy to her. As with all the Lyrans that appeared to me, they were always very soft and happy, and they always had a light pink or a bright energy about them, very almost angelic to me. I loved the energy, but I met her and she was my first official introduction to a star guide and part of my starseed family. Even in preparing for this episode, I pulled out my spirit journal and was like, I'm gonna go page back to when I met her and see what I wrote. And I didn't put a ton of details in, but I did see in the introduction of when I met her, they actually showed me an Egyptian eagle that was in gold, and there were a bunch of pyramids near it. So Lyrans always have that tie to Egyptian civilization and pyramids. They always originate from there. A lot of people say they helped build the pyramids in Egypt. So definitely on the bucket list to travel to one day. But that was my first interaction with the Lyran Star Guide, where I actually received her name and was more open to interacting with her. It wasn't just waking me up in the middle of the night and me not knowing what the being was.
Lacey, I feel like you always receive names of your guides. That's definitely something that your guides often do with you. They'll definitely share those names. So I think it's a really cool piece to attribute to that star guide, obviously along with the imagery that she brought with too.
Yes, I love names when spirit guides or beings come to me. I love to receive names, and they're often very unique names, so I don't have to feel like I'm crazy or making it up. So I love that. And then I always, typically, I'll see the spelling too. Like they'll show me the spelling of it.
Yep.
And I have had them show me names where I don't even know how to pronounce it. And it's a really long name, and I'm like, I can't pronounce that. So they'll give me a shortened nickname or something to use. So that was after I met Amika. And then much later on, probably about a year, more than a year after we had our Starseed awakenings, Marley and I decided to do a quantum hypnosis session. So it was a traditional quantum healing hypnosis technique session. So created by Dolores Cannon herself. A lot of people call it QHHT. And I decided to do one of those and find a practitioner that resonated with me and aligned with me and see what I would get out of the experience. I think oftentimes humans do those sessions to work on healing physical symptoms or ailments and connect to their higher self. A lot of times it's for past life experiences. And my session, not surprisingly, was all about the starseed work. I essentially went into this session and was able to immediately go into the trance state needed and directly channel information from my higher self. Ended up being very starseed focused, but it was amazing to connect to my higher self and my star family essentially, because it's kind of all one and the same, right? My higher self is part of my starseed lineages and star family, but they felt amazing and they were very pink And I think even in the recording, I say like 100 times that I'm pink in it, which
Yes.
tells you how much I value that. It's my favorite color, but now I know why. I talk about that a lot, though. I mentioned that I'm a pink being and my family's pink and we're pink. But they described to me in that session how my family is an offshoot of Lyra, basically like a subculture, I would say, in Lyra, and they're very closely related. They look a lot alike. When I saw them in my hypnosis session, I saw a lot of pink beings that actually looked, I'm going to say the word and I don't want to say it, but stereotypically like an alien. But they had pink skin, pink bodies. They didn't have as big of eyes, I would say, as like the typical societal and media depiction of gray or blue and green aliens.
More
But
friendly.
they were way more friendly and very sparkly. They had really soft skin and were pink. They were very excited to see me and exciting to be around. And they just felt like home. I don't know how else to describe it. It was very much like this part of my soul that was remembering during that session. And they gave me a lot of information about my starseed purpose and why I'm with Marley in this lifetime and my mission and what I'm here to do, which is a story for a different day, like we said about the dreams. But they essentially opened me up to help myself connect with them in an easier way and strengthen my connection with them. So I'm able to discern better when it's them and when it's something else or someone else. All I can describe it as is it's like this opening in my heart space. And I can till this day, ever since I had that session, I can like walk outside. I don't have to be outside, but I feel like it works better outside because the stars in the sky. But I can literally walk outside and close my eyes and tune into that, and then I'll feel them right in my heart space. It's almost like a ping. I don't know how else to describe it. Like I ping them and they ping me. I can do it inside too. During that session, we did also talk about what my home was called and where it was. And so that's what they described the offshoot of Lyra. And they struggled a lot with what I could call home because they kept saying the human language doesn't know how to communicate it or pronounce it, or it's a series of sounds. So they struggled with what they could give me on the actual name. And I wasn't pulling anything through, but later in the session, they just blurted out in the middle of it that I could refer to it as Ashwanda. So, not the specific name of the planet, but what they told me I could refer to it as and call it in my human 3D experience. So, that's what I essentially call my home planet is Ashwanda, but they are Lyran. It's still an offshoot of Lyra and part of it. And I didn't spend a ton of time on the planet and looking at it and being able to describe it to you because it was more of a people-based description when I did my session. But the planet was very bright, very pink. I just remember seeing so many sparkles. Like the energy was sparkly and it was glowy and it was warm and loving and they were just energetic people. My star family is very loyal as well. And Marley found out more insights on that in her session too. I think the
Yeah.
quantum hypnosis session was great for connecting with purpose and mission. I don't know that it gave me a ton of new information, so to speak, but it validated so much of my starseed experiences and the beings that I was seeing and interacting with, and that I was of Lyran descent. So it's a great experience, but I think that it's something that you should do when you're farther along because it can be difficult to do a quantum hypnosis session if you're not spiritually attuned and able to tap into those energies.
It's definitely specific to the individual. I would agree my QHHT session validated and confirmed a lot. Again, similar to you, I don't know that it was all new information. Some of it was, but a lot of it was reaffirming what I was thinking or what I was receiving, if I was overthinking the messages I was receiving. My experience connecting to Sirians, who are a big part of my identity and where I originate from, was Similar, but also a little bit different, which was a very confusing thing, I think, for me at the time. Only because, as I said in the beginning, I did see cat-like beings to start off on my journey. And so I really was having interactions with Lyrans. As Lacey and I were exploring, it felt strongly that Lyran, I could identify with them from what I was learning and what I was receiving. But it pretty quickly, I think it shifted, which is okay. Totally was fine with me, but it was very much a different experience than Lacey in that early on, Lacey and I each have these like UV light water bottles, and this was one of the first interactions I had had with them. And these water bottles have a light on the top that will light up. They have different settings. We use it when we travel. So if we're traveling to countries that have lower water quality or less secure conditions with water, we use these, right? And so they help sanitize the water, make sure it's good quality for us to drink. And this little light will light up when you have certain settings on it and you click the button, things like that. So these water bottles were brand new. They were charged. We had the travel lock on them, so meaning that it wouldn't light up randomly. It's locked for traveling. I started to have these experiences where this water bottle would randomly light up blue in the middle of the night, and it would do it like specifically when I'd be rolling over in bed to face the side of the room where the water bottle was on. It would just all of a sudden be like three blue flashes of light. And I'd be like, that's really weird. I hope you're not in my bedroom. Thinking it's a spirit, wondering what it is, but also knowing that I have firm boundaries in my bedroom when I'm trying to sleep at night with spirit.
You mean you don't want to have midnight talks with spirits?
Yeah, right. I try to avoid that. I try to close off the business during the nighttime hours. So I remember thinking, like, what is this and why is it allowed in here? Like, my boundaries are that my spirit team is the only one allowed in the bedroom when I'm sleeping at night, right? It's my sacred space. So then it's like, is this my spirit team? What are they trying to tell me? Why would they do this? This is so strange. Even though I have been known early on in my journey to have spirit interact with electronics for me, so it would do weird things to lights and things like that around me early in my journey. But I'm like, come on, I'm not looking for validation in the middle of the night, spirit. So I remember thinking that was very odd and talking about that with Lacey early on. And then I just started to have the lucid dream. It's like my dreams kind of shifted and started to change. And these dreams, the beings changed in them. So it was like instead of these cat-like beings, it quickly shifted over to these planets that I would be on that were full of water, barely any land full of water. And I would see these half animal, half human-like beings. I remember in the one dream, it was just like water that was as smooth as glass as far as the eye could see. And then there were these different animals that could almost like walk on the water and travel on the water. And they were helping me in the dream get to where I needed to go. So they were helping me travel around. And again, very half human, half animal. Like I remember one of them could stand on two legs, but it had a face that reminded me of like a tiger's face. And it wasn't like it had tiger markings on its face, but then its body was more white, not necessarily orange. So just very specific interactions with these different beings. And then the water. I also would have dreams, and this isn't necessarily out of the norm for my experience in the last year here with spirit, but they would bring up mermaids and like sirens. And then even selkies. When I traveled to Scotland, selkies were a huge message coming up from spirit and coming through even on the paranormal investigations we were on in Scotland. And so that's kind of always been something that I've identified with and I've known spirit has brought that forward. But mermaids continue to start showing up. In my exploration, I started to discover that Sirians usually are depicted as these half animal, half human beings, and they often are associated with mermaids or mer people and bodies of water. So I was like, huh, this is completely different than what Lacey's going through. Or a different being, I guess, than what I had originally initially started that interaction with in terms of star beings. And then some of these dreams, they were quite destructive. They shifted into more war zone type experiences with things being on fire, some almost like underworld type places. Again, these half animal, half human beings would be in these places. And in these experiences and these dreams I would have, I was a part of them, I was with them, and it felt very much like we were taking action and there was a sense of urgency in what we'd be doing, along with messages related to like darkness coming and some other messages there that we'll probably talk about later. As Lacey mentioned, I'm sure we'll expand a little bit more into some of these specific deep messages we received in the astral realm from our star families.
That's a
Um,
whole other story. Yeah.
Definitely. So I don't want to go into everything they would share with me in these places because it was pretty intense at times. But outside of these dreams, my QHHT session did confirm a lot of this. So in this session, they showed me as a Sirian. I was a half animal, half human type being. I was blue. So that's another thing with Syrians is I started to learn and get messages about the blue people and the blue beings and the blue flame. Very much related to, again, that water bottle that was lighting up blue in the middle of the night for me. And so immediately I'm like, well, this makes sense. Syrians are associated with that. That's all that I'm experiencing. That makes complete sense to me. And then my QHHT session confirmed, right? Showing me as the blue being. I remember that I had fur on my body. I was able to stand on two legs, but I had a tail that was longer, almost like a cat tail. And then my face was a little bit more feline, almost like feline combined with a fox. I had tufts of fur on my cheek and pointy ears. And so it confirmed that blue and Syrians and these half animal beings and these water planets I was experiencing truly did feel like home for me and felt like a big part of my identity and a big remembering for my soul in that QHHT session. So it was a really cool thing to experience.
Yeah. And what Marley said too, we had a variety of experiences in the beginning where, I experienced the blue light as well. She had Lyran experiences. So it was intermingled when we were trying to uncover our origins. And there was a period of time where we really felt like maybe we're hybrid, and that's just what we are. We're hybrids because we're twins or something like that. But that didn't end
Yes.
up being the case from what I learned in my channeling session and what I channeled through. We are from different lineages. I'm Lyran, she's Sirian, but they put us together for a reason, and our groups are working together. So it was a really interesting experience, especially since we are identical twins.
Yes, it was quite a discovery, I would say. Like I said, a soul remembering for both of us and a closer connection within ourselves to that identity. But the other thing that I uncovered in my QHHT session was more information about Lacey and I and how we interact and how we met. Originally, I would say how we met. And one of those lifetimes or journeys I was on as a Syrian being was that I would help create new planets. So they showed me what it looked like as I would test the soil and wait for a long period of time and work with different teams to really curate these planets for beings that need asylum or beings that need somewhere else to live due to negative forces or other species taking over their space or taking over their planets. So that was actually how Lacey and I met. I discovered that Lyra was a war-torn planet through my QHHT session. And so as I was seeing myself help create these planets, I was also seeing myself welcome in these new beings or these different species to live on these planets that I helped create. I remember seeing the most beautiful planets that reminded me a lot of Inner Earth, people who do a lot of research on Inner Earth or going to the North Pole, things like that, like very much otherworldly, like waterfalls and butterflies and mountains and just the most otherworldly nature landscapes, like a heightened version of Earth, if you will. New Earth vibes, right?
I want you
Um,
to imagine those AI created videos and landscapes. Imagine that, and that's like the other planets and New Earth type of vibes.
yes, very much a new level, a heightened level of what Earth has already and where it could go. But the cool thing too about this session and this visual and learning this is seeing Lacey's like star family come to this planet and visit. It was just like so many pink beings dancing around. And they really were exactly how Lacey describes sparkly and human-like, but bald heads almost, also different shapes, and they were very energetic and dancing around.
We're
It
cool
just,
like that. We get down. We're the
yes,
life of the party.
yes. So I remember thinking how cool it was to see this mixture of pink and blue beings and how much that felt like home and how Lacey and I met in that way. So knowing that a lot of the visuals I've seen in the astral realm very well could be Lyra being at war or being destroyed. So those could be those parts of me seeing that part of Lyra. But also recognizing after Lacey and I went through these QHHT sessions, like how much this felt like a piece of our identities and how much this felt like home to us. Because how easy it was to make sense of it once you had that experience. We've always had our favorite colors growing up, right? Lacey has always been pink, I've always been blue. So really, all along, we had some answers in front of us. We just didn't realize they were there.
And it really helps when you can buy his and her items together. Just saying.
Right? Yes.
I have to add that in there.
And it
But
has
it,
nothing to do with masculine or feminine energy, by the way. It's
no, it has
just
nothing to do,
solely based on color preference.
yeah, just color preference. But yes, it's like these little breadcrumbs that we never knew from childhood ended up being very significant parts of our spiritual journeys and parts of our purpose and our missions and where we came from. I think it's incredible. And I think the quantum hypnosis sessions really validated our experiences and what we were already channeling and seeing from these beings. So, not all of it was new information. Some of it was. Some of it helped, like, oh, this is how we met. And I did question the war in Lyra because we did know about there being a war and we had heard some things. I was recently told there's a book about it that I need to read that someone wrote. So we knew about it, but we didn't want to go in with any biases and we wanted to see what we would channel from our higher selves. It was really cool to have a lot of that information come through and be confirmed and be validated. There was a lot of other stuff to do with different topics. It wasn't like everything was just about our starseed stuff, but most of it really was. It was about our purposes, why we're here, our gifts, what we're doing, where we're going, which obviously we can't share all of that with you right now. But there are times when more information is going to become public, like we said before. I don't mean to tease you all on that. I'm just trying to keep it real that there's more to our missions than what we can completely share right now. And you'll know once we announce things, you'll be like, that's why they didn't say anything. It was a great experience, and I think it's important that we talk about how we communicate with our star families now. I think it's something that everyone's going to be interested in hearing about. And channeling our star families is a lot like connecting with spirit, right? It's just a different being. It's just a different light being, a different interdimensional being. You'll not hear us use the word alien. We don't like it. We were told when we first started interacting with them that it's derogatory and they prefer light being because it is. Society has a lot of fear around that word, and there's a lot of scary movies with that word in it. So we try not to use it, but these light beings, they have so much to offer humanity, and it's almost like this untapped potential that people don't even realize in the spiritual realm. And that's why we love doing what we're doing right now. That's kind of part of the drive behind where Twin Essence is going and us being Starseed Lightworkers. These beings are so high vibration and they have so much insight to our journeys.
Yeah, they've taught us so much. Interacting with spirit has as well, right? But they just are a different vibration, like Lacey said, and it's allowed us to connect and really receive different messages than we normally would, or that we used to, I would say, in our spiritual paths. And it's really created a special form of healing for us and a special way that we're able to channel and I think provide healing and messages for others that we work with too. They continue to share messages with us, obviously, as Starseed Light workers, and that it is the main source of information that we channel from now and use for healing work. I often still, I'm having incredibly vivid dreams. I interact with them a lot in the astral realm. Again, it's these water-like planets and these different beings I'm seeing. I also have different Sirian beings come to me in meditations. So it's funny, I flip back into my journal and I just saw from 4 months ago, I had one where it was this half gazelle, half human being came to me and shared this message with me about taking action and stepping forward with where I'm at right now. They always provide these messages to me and these different visuals, which I think are very, very interesting and unique to Syrians.
They do, and it's a higher consciousness, so it has been very enlightening to learn from them about Gaia's ascension and New Earth and where things are going in the world. And it's very grounding, I would say, to communicate with them because it helps you stay sane when it feels like there's a lot of things happening in the external world where I'm like, oh, I had access to that information and I know what's going on here because they told me, my star family told me what purpose this incident was serving and where things are going. So it's very helpful in that sense as well. We still interact with them probably on a daily. And like we said, it's the bulk of our work. So we talk with them a lot. It's no different than having spirit guides too, but it is a higher consciousness. That's the difference in how you're tapping into them and channeling them. So it does feel very different when you channel information from them and when you receive information and downloads. I liken it to connecting to your higher self if you've done that, because your higher self is a really high consciousness and vibration version of you as well. But it's interesting when they come through, and I still get signs from them. For instance, like a month or so ago, we were at a bookstore and I saw this little pocket guide to the stars. And so I picked it up and I was like, oh, this is so cute. And I literally just opened the book up to see what it looked like. And I opened it right to the Lyra constellation page, which give me a signier sign, right? So it was my star family poking me, being like, hello, we're right here. We're still with you.
Spoiler alert, she did buy the book.
I did. It was a sign.
Even what Lacey alluded to earlier, though, like the higher consciousness and that different energy that we're channeling with them as Starseed Lightworkers, and then obviously in sessions with clients, at this point, our star family and our star beings or our star guides, they're part of our spirit team. So even when Lacey and I say spirit, at this point, spirit is largely encompassing our star being guides, our star family members. It just is at this point. That makes up a large amount of our support on the other side, in the other dimensions.
You might hear us once in a while delineate this is coming from my star family, or this is coming from Amica, or this is coming from spirit. But a lot of times when we do say spirit, we, like she said, we mean the same thing because it's all part of how we channel now.
It's such a beautiful connection to have, and the discovery really helped us a lot on our journeys. Learning and having those pieces validated about our starseed origins, knowing that the pink and blue beings have always been a part of us, are part of who we are, and something as small and insignificant as your favorite color actually means a lot more than you might realize in your identity and on your spiritual path, as we learned.
And I just want to share this for anybody that might be going through a Starseed awakening and trying to figure out what does it mean, how does it impact me and my purpose or my work that I'm doing. I just want to say it's a very individual journey. You've heard us mention that in previous episodes already, but uncovering your starseed lineages and your origin, it's a very individual journey that takes time. And we encourage you to go inward and see what signs and messages you receive from your star family before you book a certain appointment where you feel like someone needs to tell you what it is. I think it can be validating for someone to tell you later on. And I think that it's important to still remain open to other messages from other types of star seeds as well. We always talk about that in our work. We're channeling from the whole catalog, and sometimes other beings who aren't part of our star family come through with a message for someone. It's happened in sessions for any of my previous clients and current clients. They've had this happen in sessions with Marley and I. So just keep that in mind. And quantum hypnosis isn't for everybody. It's a unique experience, and we encourage you to feel into that if it feels like something you would like to do later on down the line. But it can be fun.
Absolutely. So just remember that sometimes those little parts of yourself that you think are not a big deal or are insignificant actually aren't. They actually are just a breadcrumb that's existing for you to follow to find and learn more a little, to find and learn more about your origins or your soul to remember. So as you have Starseed experiences, we ask you to dig a little bit deeper into those experiences and ask yourself, what do the beings look like? How do they make me feel? What messages are they bringing to me? And you'll probably be able to find the answers yourself.